Stella couldn't take her eyes off the dusty road unfolding before her, each turn bringing her closer to the village where she had left her husband Hakim under circumstances she preferred to forget. A year had passed since she made the difficult decision to leave, leaving him in a weakened state with little chance of recovery, according to the doctors. Now armed with legal documents and renewed determination, she was back to claim the inheritance she believed was rightfully hers. Stopping the car in front of the rusty gate of the old house they had shared, Stella took a deep breath. Memories of the life they had tried to build together flooded back, but the need for financial security for the future weighed heavier. She adjusted the rearview mirror, checked her appearance one last time, and got out of the car. The air was filled with a silence Stella interpreted as a bad omen. She approached the front door and knocked, her heart pounding in her chest. A family friend opened the door, the surprise on his face evident.
"Stella, is that you? We didn't expect to see you here,"
he finally said hesitantly.
"Hello, Roar. I know this must surprise you, but I'm here to settle some important matters,"
she replied, trying to keep her voice steady.
"I see. Hakim mentioned it, but Stella, things have changed a lot here,"
said Roar, opening the door. Stella entered, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination.
"I imagine, but I need to see for myself. I'm ready to do whatever it takes."
Roar nodded, showing a mix of concern and respect.
"Well, you should first talk to Hakim. He'll want to know you're here." "That's exactly what I intend to do, Roar." "Thank you,"
Stella replied as she walked past him and into the house she once called her own. Walking through the familiar hallways, she braced herself for the inevitable confrontation. The struggle for the inheritance would be just the beginning of a much more complex process of reevaluation and confrontation with the past. As Stella crossed the threshold of the house, her heart was heavy, but nothing could have prepared her for the shock of seeing Hakim not only alive, but unrecognizable. The last image she had of him was of a frail man confined to bed, the marks of illness etched on every feature of his face. Now, before her stood a revitalized man, his eyes shining with an intensity she had never seen before.
"Hakim?"
she said cautiously, her voice trembling with uncertainty. He turned slowly, his gaze piercing.
"Stella, you've returned,"
he said, his voice revealing neither joy nor surprise, only awareness.
"I didn't expect to find you like this. How is this possible?"
she asked, her eyes searching his face for signs of the man she left behind. Hakim smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes.
"A lot can change in a year,"
he began, approaching her with renewed confidence.
"After you left, I found, let's say, a new perspective on life."
Stella watched him move with a strange, almost supernatural grace.
"What do you mean by a new perspective?" "You were dying, Hakim, the doctors. There are old traditions in this village, Stella, remedies and knowledge passed down in secret. I was fortunate to be accepted into a very special circle." "And what circle is that?"
Stella asked, a hint of fear mingling with her curiosity.
"They showed me that life isn't just about fighting illness. They gave me a purpose, a rebirth."
Stella felt a chill run down her spine.
"And what does that mean for us, for our lives?" "Our old life is over. I am part of something greater now. As for the inheritance you came to claim, it is entwined in ways you cannot yet understand."
Perplexed and increasingly worried, Stella realized that the man before her had the same face as her husband, but his essence had radically changed. Whatever he had discovered or become, the bond that once united them seemed irreparably altered. As Stella began to adjust to Hakim's surprising transformation, she also noticed significant changes in the village. The place, once marked by desolation and abandonment, now pulsed with a new and somewhat unsettling energy. Small improvements were visible everywhere, from freshly painted house facades to carefully maintained gardens. But it was the atmosphere that intrigued her most, the feeling that something deeper had changed. In search of answers, Stella decided to visit the local market, a place that had always been the beating heart of the community. As she wandered among the stalls, she was recognized by an old neighbor, Agath, who sold aromatic herbs and homemade remedies.
"Stella, my dear, what a surprise to see you again!"
exclaimed Agath, her gaze a mix of surprise and caution.
"Agath, everything is so different. What happened here after I left?"
Stella asked, eager to understand the changes. The old woman sighed, looked around before replying in a low voice.
Many things have changed, my child, since your Hakim got involved with, how do they call themselves? The guardians of the traditions. They say they protect the village with old methods, but there are those who say they brought more than protection. Protection, Agath? What do you mean?
Stella absorbed the words with growing apprehension.
And what about the inheritance, the land that belongs to my family for generations?
Agath looked at Stella with sympathy.
Dear, I fear that has also been implicated in the changes. Hakim and the Guardians have plans for all the village lands. Nothing is simple here anymore.
Realizing the complexity of what she would be facing, Stella thanked Agath and walked away, her mind filled with new worries. The village she knew seemed to be under the control of a force she barely understood. The old laws and rites seemed to be rewritten, and she found herself in the middle of a struggle larger than her own quest for inheritance. As Stella delved deeper into the changes in the village and the influence of the guardians of the tradition, increasingly strange and inexplicable phenomena began to occur. One evening, as she walked home to the house she had shared with Hakim, she felt a sudden drop in temperature and saw a thick fog quickly forming around her legs, an unusual phenomenon for that time of year. Troubled but determined, Stella quickened her pace before being interrupted by a soft yet firm voice coming from the mist.
Why have you returned, Stella? Wasn't your journey over when you left us?
She spun around, trying to identify the source of the voice.
Who's there? Show yourself,
she demanded, her voice trembling slightly with fear. From the fog emerged a figure clad in long robes, their face hidden by the shadow of the hood they wore.
We are the protectors of this land, those who guide Hakim. You have disrupted the balance we fought so hard to maintain.
Stella took a deep breath, facing the figure.
I just want what is rightfully mine, the inheritance that belongs to my family. The inheritance you seek cannot be separated from the forces that now govern this land.
The figure responded, their voice resonating with an authority that seemed to echo with the wind itself.
Are you prepared to pay the price for disrupting this balance?
Stella felt a chill down her spine.
I don't understand. What have you done to Hakim? Hakim's transformation was his choice, a compromise for the greater good of the village.
The figure explained.
He understood what was necessary for our prosperity. But what about you, Stella? Do you realize the weight of the choices you must make?
Confronted with the complexity and implications of these actions, Stella realized that the struggle for the inheritance was not just a legal or financial matter. It was clear that supernatural forces were at play, intertwined with the very essence of the land and community. With a lump in her throat, she murmured,
I need to think. I need to understand all this. Wisdom comes to those who seek to understand the balance of things,
the figure said, slowly retreating into the mist.
Think carefully about your choices, Stella. The consequences of your actions will be felt for a long time.
Shaken by this encounter, Stella resumed her path home, her mind overwhelmed by new doubts and the weight of the decisions she had to make. The inheritance, she thought, was a simple matter of law now seemed entangled with powers she was just beginning to comprehend. After weeks of research and confrontation with phenomena that defied understanding, Stella began to realize the deep intertwining between her material inheritance and the mysterious powers governing the village. Feeling increasingly isolated in her struggle, she was forced to reconsider what her family's legacy truly meant. One rainy afternoon, as she walked through the drenched streets of the village, Stella met Father Louis, the local parish priest, a man who had always been a pillar of wisdom and support for the community. He invited her into the small church, a refuge against the chaos that seemed to consume the rest of the village.
Father Louis, I am lost,
Stella confessed as they sat on the creaking wooden pews.
I came here to seek justice for me and my family, but now I see that things are much more complicated.
Father Louis sighed, his expression grave.
Stella, sometimes in the pursuit of what we believe is rightfully ours, we can lose sight of what truly matters.
The priest's words resonated in Stella's mind. She sighed deeply, doubts growing within her.
I don't know anymore, Father. Everything I thought I knew about justice and law seems distorted here. It is sometimes necessary to let go of the ties to the past to see the present clearly,
the priest suggested.
It may be time for you to consider a new path, a new way of living that is not bound to these disputes.
After a long moment, she spoke, more to herself than to the priest.
Maybe the true inheritance I should seek is not land or money but peace and reconciliation.
With this new perspective, Stella began to reevaluate her decisions and their impact on her life and the lives of others. The struggle for a material inheritance lost its luster compared to the search for an inheritance of understanding and harmony with those around her. Determined, she stood up, thanked the priest, and left the church, the rain now seeming to wash not only the land but also her soul, signaling the beginning of a new journey.